everyone, so today's video is going to be my August wrap-up. Now, I have put off filming this video for like a week because last week I was in more pain than I usually am when I want to film, and I knew that this video would be quite painful to film because of the amount of books that I read, which is good, but it's bad for, my physical health. But basically, if you didn't see like my August TBR, I decided to do a 31 books in 31 days challenge, and I did not manage to read 31 books in 31 days. But I did manage to read 25, which is still really good. I really enjoyed doing the challenge. This month, however, which is September, I will probably not reach anywhere near 25 books because my physical and mental health has been too bad for me to concentrate on reading. But I'll get into that once September is over and I film my September wrap-up. This intro was already long enough, so let's just get into all of the books that I read in August. Now, as you can probably see in the background, one of my shelves is quite empty. That is because in August I actually read quite a few physical books, which I'm very proud of myself for that. I'm definitely not doing that in September because of how bad my pain has been. But yeah, because I read so many physical books, I do just want to say before I start, I know I just said I was going to get into the books that I read, but I just want to say now, my shoulders have been bothering me the last couple days, especially my left one. So yeah, that's why if I look like really uncomfortable while holding the books, especially my left hand, it's because I'm in pain. It's also why I'm wearing this, because a button-up shirt is easier to put on than something you have to pull over your head. I was planning on wearing something else today, but I was in too much pain to put it on, so I'm wearing this instead. So yeah, now let's actually get into the books that I read in August and not make this intro any longer because I feel like it's way too long. So yeah, let's actually get into them now. So the first book that I read in August is Love is a Revolution. Now, if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I was really excited to read this book because I really like the cover. It's really pretty in my opinion. I really like the colors. And I really wanted to like this book a lot, but it just ended up being okay. Like, it was still good, but it wasn't like amazing in my opinion. I gave it 3 stars. It was a very fast read though. I read it really fast, but one of the things that really bothered me about this book was how much the main character was like lying to everyone, which that's not really a spoiler because it's on the back of the book. Like, it says that she lies about stuff that gets a guy's attention, specifically like the guy who's also on the cover. But yeah, because of how much she was lying, I don't know, I just couldn't feel bad for her. Like, I can't imagine ever lying that much. Like, I'm quite an honest person, probably a bit too much in some situations, but yeah, I just couldn't really like the main character of this book. I would still recommend it though if you want like a fast read with a very pretty cover. I would recommend it, but yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, which kind of makes me a bit sad. So yeah, let's get into the next book. So the next book that I read, I kind of read on a whim because I was really in the mood to read a book like this, and that book is Allegedly. I quite enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would because I'm not really like a person who reads like thrillers or anything like that. But I've heard a lot of good things about this author, and so I bought this book of hers a couple months ago and I quite enjoyed it. Again, I'm not really like a thriller fan, so I can't give you like, a good review on how good of a thriller it was. I just liked it. It left you like guessing until the end about what really happened. And I quite liked that, even though the ending was a little bit disappointing. I wasn't like that disappointed in it. Like, it was kind of disappointing, but not too much. But then I read a lot of reviews by people who read a lot of books like this, so like thrillers and stuff like that. And most of them were like, yeah, the ending was a bit disappointing. But yeah, for someone like me who doesn't read a lot of thrillers, I really liked it, and I really want to read more books like this now. I actually bought like another thriller like a couple days ago, and I'm really excited to read it. I hope to read it this month or next month, because this book put me in like a, like a thriller mood. I keep saying the word thriller. I don't even know if that's the genre of this book, but I'm gonna assume it is. So, yeah. Then next I read volumes 9 and 10 of Nagatoro, which I have completely given up on choosing which name I want to use for this manga, so I'm just gonna say Nagatoro because why not? It is part of a title after all. But yeah, if you've watched previous wrap-ups of me, you know that I, like catch up with this story whenever new like chapters come out every like couple of weeks. And yeah, I read volumes 9 and 10. The romance is finally progressing a bit, which is great. It took 10 volumes to do that, but that's kind of expected with a manga like this. I'm still quite liking it. Again, I would not recommend it to everyone because it does include like, bullying and stuff like that. But I am quite enjoying this manga, so I'm going to continue reading it as it comes out. So yeah, then next I read volumes 1 till 4 of Hyokoi. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly because my dyslexia really kicks in whenever I see the title of this manga. But yeah, I also quite enjoyed this. I tried reading the first volume a couple months ago and I wasn't in the mood for it, and now I clearly was. It is quite interesting and quite cute at times. The art style is a bit interesting sometimes. It's a bit questionable, but the story is still decently good. I feel like it's quite an easy read, and I needed that after reading Allegedly because it was so intense and like scary at times that I was like, okay, I need a soft, cute manga that I can just read while relaxing instead of being, nervous all the time like I was when I read Allegedly. So yeah, it was quite cute. I don't know if I will continue reading Hyokoi, but I might. If I read another like really intense book and I need like a cute manga, I might continue reading it, but otherwise I probably won't because I'm not that interested in the story. So yeah, let's just get into the next book because I feel like if I speak this much about every single book that I've read, then I'm never gonna be able to make this video like under 30 minutes. So yeah. So the next couple of books that I read are audiobooks. The first one is Lie With Me. I quite like this book. It was a lot more explicit and sad than I was expecting. I was listening to it while I was rearranging my bookshelf, and I actually had to stop rearranging it because I was crying at the end. I did not really expect that, but I did really like it. It was very short, so it was very quick to get through, but it was quite emotional for such a quick book. I feel like if it was a longer book, it probably would have been even more emotional. So I kind of wish it was longer, but it was still pretty good. I still liked it. So then the next audiobook that I listened to was My Sister the Serial Killer. I have heard a lot about this book and I heard very mixed reviews. And so I was very interested to see whether I would like it or not. And I kind of fall towards kind of liking it but not fully liking it. I didn't really think it was that interesting during like the middle part of the book. Like the beginning was very intriguing and the end was very intriguing, but the middle part was just a bit boring at times. I did quite like the I don't know how to properly say it, but like the atmosphere of the ending. I feel like throughout the entire book it wasn't really that creepy despite like the whole like premises of the book. The title kind of says it all, like My Sister the Serial Killer. It wasn't that like creepy in the beginning in my opinion, but then as we got towards the end I was like, okay, now I'm actually getting creeped out, which is good because that's the purpose of the book. But other than that, I didn't really like it that much. Like I said, I only really liked the beginning and then the end of the book. But yeah, like I said, I did quite like the atmosphere of the end, which I don't really know how to describe it otherwise, but basically just the way that the ending was written kind of gave like the the creepy feeling that I thought would be throughout the entire book. But it wasn't there, but then the ending did have it, which I did like that, but I wish that kind of like was throughout the entire book, that creepy feeling, but it wasn't, sadly enough. So yeah, let's get into the next book, which is also an audiobook, and it's actually a book that also had a creepy ending, and I definitely wasn't expecting it with that one, because it's not like, an actual creepy book like My Sister the Serial Killer. It's a classic, so I wasn't really expecting for me to be creeped out by it, but I was. And the book that I'm talking about is Animal Farm. Now, I read 1984 a couple months ago, I think, and I kind of liked that one. It was a bit boring sometimes, but I did like Animal Farm more. Still not like 5 stars or anything, but I did like Animal Farm more, even though, again, the story was quite slow in itself, but it did have that like creepy ending that I didn't really have with 1984. Even though I thought that 1984 was going to be scarier, to me Animal Farm was scarier. There was just this sentence at the last like page of the book, and I remember that I was journaling while listening to this book, because I always listen to audiobooks when I'm journaling, and I remember that the last like sentences were said, and I actually like turned around, because my desk is actually here, it's where you guys are on, like my phone filming this video, and my door is on this side, so I'm always sitting like with my back towards my door, which I don't usually mind that, but when those last sentences were said, I actively like turned around, and I was like, is something behind me? Like it actually scared me, which again, I wasn't expecting that, because the story was, again, kind of like 1984, a little bit boring and a little bit slow paced, but it was still kind of interesting to follow like animals instead of human beings. But then the ending happened, and I was like, oh. Which, if you've read Animal Farm, you know why me saying you follow animals instead of human beings is a bit of an interesting thing to say, considering the ending of Animal Farm. But yeah, I'm permanently scared of pigs now, so that's great. But yeah, like I said, I like this book more than 1984. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about this book now, because it's like I've made my point. Pigs are scary now. But yeah, let's get into the next book that I read in August. So the next book is a reread, because I wanted to see if I still liked it as much as I liked it when I read it the first time, which I actually talked about this book in my video about like all the books I wanted to reread. So that book is We Were Liars. Now, when I first read this book, I think I gave it either 5 stars or 4.5 stars. I can't exactly remember, but I really liked it. It was really like intriguing and interesting, and it made me cry a lot. And this time when I reread it, I didn't cry at all, because I knew what was gonna happen. I give it 3 stars this time around. I don't know if that's a good rating for it, because I feel like that's still a bit too high. I've read this book twice now, and I can still not tell you like what happened in this book really. But yeah, I'm glad I reread it though. I'm now like motivated kind of to reread like more books to see what I think of them now. And yeah, I would still recommend this book, especially if you want to read it for the first time, because it is really intriguing and like sad when you read it for the first time. But once you reread it, like it kind of loses like the intrigue and the sadness of it. You do notice things a lot more, because I mentioned this in my video about rereads. This is kind of like a mystery. And with mysteries, you can't really fully reread them and get the same experience as you got the first time, because now you know what's going on. But you do pick up on more things that happen throughout the book that kind of hint at the ending. So I definitely had that with this book. but I was still kind of disappointed. But the ending was, again, quite sad. It didn't make me cry, but it was quite sad reading it still. But I'm still glad I reread it. So yeah, let's move on to the next book now, because holding this up is really hurting my arm, even though it's a very tiny book. So yeah, this video is great. I'm not even halfway through all the books that I read. I'm already in a lot of pain, so that's great. So the next book that I read in August is a book I've wanted to read for quite a while, and I really wanted it to be 5 stars, but it was not, which I'm very sad about that. But I still really liked it, and that book is You Should See Me in a Crown. This book has a lot of things that I love about books, like, a sapphic couple, so 2 girls and a chronically ill side character, a very realistic relationship between 2 people, I feel like. But it was still not 5 stars because I feel like one character in this book specifically was very easily forgiven for something that they did, and I'm not someone that does that. Like, I'm someone who holds grudges for quite a while, and the idea of forgiving someone this easily really bothers me. Yeah, other than that, it was quite a cute book. It just didn't live up to my expectations because I feel like it was kind of a struggle getting through it, because I feel like it felt long, even though it's not that long. It still felt long reading it. But other than that, I did really enjoy it. It was quite cute, and I do like the main character a lot. I really like her character. So yeah, I would still recommend it, even though it was not 5 stars for me. And then the next book I actually listened to because I read it with an audiobook, but I would really like a physical copy of this book someday. And that book is Convenience Store Woman. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right because that's a very difficult title to say. But I did really like this book. I kind of knew I would like it because I heard some people, mainly autistic people, describe the main character as autistic. And now that I've read the book, I do agree, the main character is definitely autistic coded. They almost say it in the book without really saying it. So it kind of makes me sad that whenever people talk about this book, they never mention that the character is autistic coded, which is understandable considering that most people still don't really look at someone like this and think that she's autistic. They just think that she's quirky and weird, which I really dislike it whenever people say that, because those people are almost always non-autistic people, and you all just need to educate yourself on what autistic people actually look like, instead of just thinking of a child who really likes trains and is obsessed with them. That's not what all of us look like. I mean, look at me. Do I look like a tiny boy who likes trains? I've never been interested in trains. But yeah, anyway, the character in this is definitely autistic coded. You can fight me on that. Actually, don't, because I'm really weak. But you can definitely fight me on that. I did really like it. It was quite a fast read. Some of the things that happen in this book are a bit uncomfortable to read about, but they do kind of make a point. I really dislike the main male side character. I really dislike him, really dislike him, but I can understand the reason for his character, not for his behavior, but the reason why he's there and what he brings to the story. I can understand that because it kind of makes the main character realize things. And the ending of this book made me really happy. I really like how the main character is no longer trying to change herself for other people so that she becomes accepted by them, because I feel like a lot of autistic people have that feeling of you need to change yourself in order for people to like you. I knew when I was still going to school that if I just talked more and interacted with people more, people would be more inclined to be friends with me. But I kind of just slowly stopped caring because I was just making myself uncomfortable by forcing myself to talk to people. And did people think that I was very weird for barely saying anything at school? Yes, but that's the way that I'm the most comfortable. I'm not really someone who likes talking a lot. I don't know if I've already mentioned this, but I'm selectively mute. And so because of that, there's just certain situations where I can talk. Like for example, at school, I just could barely talk. And so, like I've already said, I stopped trying to like please other people and I started like listening to my own body and what I wanted instead of what other people wanted from me. And because of that, I really liked the ending of this book. It kind of like showed that like her, the main character no longer like trying to change herself for other people. She just kind of like stopped caring and just started doing things that she wanted to do, which I really like that. So yeah, I'm gonna stop ranting about it now because I feel I've been going on about it for a bit too long. But yeah, I really liked it. I really recommend it. And so if you talk about this book like on the internet, please do like mention it that the character is autistic coded. Like don't call her like quirky and weird. She's clearly autistic coded. It just hurts that people kind of like brush over it because, people think that it's like something to be ashamed about that she's autistic coded. It's not something to be ashamed about, and she clearly realizes that at the end of the book. So, for people to kind of like brush over that and not mention it just feels rude to like the character, and especially autistic people as well, obviously. But it even feels rude to the character themselves, even though they're not a real person. So yeah, if you do end up like posting about this book on social media, whoever's watching this, do like mention that the character is autistic coded. Please don't call her just quirky and weird. But yeah, I'm gonna move on to the next book now because at this point I'm definitely not gonna get this video under 30 minutes. And my voice keeps giving out because I've been talking so much, and like I've already said, I don't talk a lot because I'm selectively mute. So yeah, let's just get through the rest of these books. The next book that I read is another audiobook, and that is The Strange Library, which, as the title suggests, this book was quite strange. I didn't really know what was going on like 90% of the time, or like 100%. I didn't know what was going on in this book at all. But it was quite interesting, like it was quite intriguing because it was so strange. But I feel like I just didn't understand it. I think, I might be wrong, but I think there's like an illustrated version of this book, which I think I would like that a lot more, like reading like an illustrated version of this book. Because I feel like this is one of these books that would look really good illustrated because of the amount of like weirdness and creepiness going on. So yeah, I gave it 2 stars, I think. It was just a bit too strange for my liking, even though that's literally what the title says. The next book that I read, I actually filmed a reading vlog for it. I haven't posted it yet, but when I do post it, I will link it somewhere. I think it's here. I'll link it. But yeah, that book is It Ends With Us. Now, I've already said this in my like August TBR and the vlog itself, that I've never read any books by this author, even though she's very popular, because her books don't seem like my taste, and I was correct in that. I did like the message that this book sent. I liked it a lot, actually. I liked the way that it was written. The whole message of the book, which I won't say what it is because that will spoil it, but yeah, I did like the message of this book. Like the actual book, however, just dragged so much. Like I struggled my way through it because it was just so, I don't know, not boring, but just so long to read. Which it isn't even that long, but it still dragged a lot. But like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about this book because I did talk about it a lot in my vlog and what I thought about it. But basically, I didn't really like it that much. I didn't like the message that it sends, but other than that, there were a lot of things about this book that I didn't like, especially some like of the representation in this book. But yeah, if you want to know like a more like in-depth opinion on this like book, you should watch my vlog for this book. I really talk about it in detail, especially at the end after I finished it. So yeah, I hope you will check out that vlog if you want to know more about this book. So yeah, I probably won't read any more books by this author, which kind of made me sad because I really thought that this book would like have me like interested in reading her other books, but it didn't, and this is supposed to be like one of her best books. So yeah. Then the next book that I read is A Quiet Kind of Thunder. Now this book had quite a lot of representation and quite good representation as well. I wish more books had representation like this because I feel like oftentimes, disabled or chronically ill people are just kind of like an extra in a book. Like you just want to add a little bit of diversity, so you have like one side character who's in the book for like 2 seconds who's disabled. And us disabled people and chronically ill people, we deserve more than that. We deserve books that are about us and not just a book about someone who is like helping us and is seen as some sort of like hero for helping us, which when I say that, I'm kind of referring to a very specific book that's really popular. Like, you probably know which book I mean. It's a very popular book, and the main character is kind of like seen as like a savior for the disabled character. And the ending of that book, like, I've never read it or watched the movie, but I've seen people talk about it, and it makes me extremely angry how that book ends, and just no. So I wish that there were more books like this that has, a lot of representation for us. I did quite like it because of the amount of representation, but the plot was a bit forgettable, I feel like. Like, I can't tell you what the plot of this book was, really, other than two people falling in love. But yeah, I did quite like it. And like I've already said, I wish there were more books like this. So hopefully that will happen in the future. So the cover of the next book really annoys me because it's very off-center, and the book that I'm talking about it is My Heart and Other Black Holes. As you can tell, this cover is off-center. I really don't like it. Like, the back is just fine. It's just the cover, which is very annoying. But yeah, this was a very sad book, obviously, considering the subject, which if you don't know what the subject of this book is, I consider looking it up, because I don't know if I can talk about it on camera without this video getting taken down or something. But yeah, the subject of this book is quite sad, and despite it being sad, it was actually quite a fast-paced book. Like, I really liked that about it. But I didn't completely love it. I feel like it was quite predictable. Like, I kind of knew what would happen in like the very first like 10 pages of the book. I was like, yeah, I know how this is gonna end, which I was kind of sad about that. But it was still quite a fast read, and the subject is quite important, so I would still recommend it if you can get past the off-center cover, of course. So yeah. Then next, I read the first 4 volumes of Assassination Classroom, which I probably mispronounced that because of, my lisp and stuff like that. But yeah, I read the first 4 volumes of this. I can't hold the 4th one up because then it becomes too heavy for me to hold up. But this is also too heavy, so I'm probably just gonna hold the first volume for the time that I talk about this series. So Assassination Classroom is like a very well-known like anime and manga as well, because it is quite old, I think. Something I really love about this series, despite like the plot, is the covers. Like, I think they're really interesting and like fit the story a lot. But yeah, if you don't know what this story of this manga and like the anime is about, I would consider looking it up, because I don't think I can explain it because it's very weird. But yeah, I did really like this. I liked it a lot better than I thought I would. It made me laugh a little bit, which is very difficult to do. This series, or well, the first 4 volumes at least, do have some like issues with sexism and stuff like that, but it wasn't too bad that I like didn't enjoy the manga anymore. So yeah, I did quite like it. They were quite fast reads, and I really want to buy the other volumes now. So yeah, that's really bad for my wallet. So yeah, let's get into the next book because I'm getting quite hungry and my stomach keeps growling, so let's hope that you can't hear that on the camera. So yeah, I'm just gonna talk about the last books that I read in the month of August because I'm almost done with this video actually, so that's good at least. So yeah, then the next book that I read in August is Bold Can Be True, which I've been trying to finish this audiobook for like 2 months now, I think, and I finally finished it. And I liked it less than I thought I would. I think because I spent such a long time reading it, or well, listening to it, that I feel like it just lost its like magic kind of. It was very cute, and I did really like the representation, especially with the target audience of this book, because it's clearly not like people like me. It's like a younger audience, but that obviously doesn't mean that you can't read books like this just because you're not the target audience. But I did think it was quite cute. Like I said, I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, but the dog in this was really cute, and I did really quite like the characters in this book. But yeah, let's move on to the next book, which is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I read this on a whim as an audiobook because I needed a very fast book because I wanted to get as close to 31 books as I could. And I'm really glad that I decided to read this. It was a lot sadder than I thought it was gonna be, and I kind of want like a physical copy of this book now because I still think about this book sometimes. Like my mind just wanders and I'm like, wow, that was quite sad and upsetting. But yeah, I would really recommend it. It's quite a short book. I don't know how big it is in like physical form, but in like audiobook form, it was only like an hour and 20 minutes, I think, so that's very fast. So that's a very short book. But yeah, I would love like a physical copy of this book, so I might buy one day, and then I'll put them with the other classic books that I own, which is like my bottom shelf here, which maybe a book like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button will actually encourage me to read more of my classics, because the entire shelf of classics, like I think I've read like 4 of them, maybe even less than that, maybe 3 of them. So yeah, I really need to read the rest of them someday, but classics is just like those books are quite difficult to read sometimes. So yeah, maybe one day I'll actually read some of them. But yeah, let's now get into the last book that I read in August, which I'm very excited to talk about this book, but I'm now in so much pain and I'm so hungry as well that I don't know if I'm going to be able to properly talk about it, but let's give it a shot, I guess. So yeah, the last book that I read in August was Show Us Who You Are, which this book is by the same author as A Kind of Spark, which if you have watched my channel for a little while, you know I absolutely love that book. And I love this book as well. It was really good. It was really sad at times. I cried a lot during this book. Especially during like the second half of the book. So it was sad, but it was also quite hopeful, and it had a really good message, and I feel like the message was written like in a perfect way for the audience that this book has, because this book as well as A Kind of Spark, they're both middle grade books. The subject of this book is basically eugenics, and if you don't know what eugenics is, I will put the definition here. But basically, eugenics is like the topic of this book, and the way that it's written about is very easy for, you know, the younger audience that this book has. And I really like that. Again, kind of like with A Kind of Spark, I want to like recommend this book to everyone and like buy a copy of this to everyone. I especially want like my mom to read this because I feel like she would actually give this book a try. Like my dad, he would never read a book like this, even if I asked him to. My mom would give it a try, and I know that she would actually love it. So maybe I can convince her, and then she'll know why, you know, eugenics is such a problem for people like me. So yeah, I really recommend this book. I'm gonna recommend it probably as much as I recommend A Kind of Spark. I might even recommend this book more because of the important subject that it has and because of how easy it's written. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to more books by this author. She's definitely become like one of my favorite authors, and I really hope that someday I can write a book like this. I'm probably never going to be able to do that because, you know, all of my learning disabilities and stuff like that is going to make writing a book in my second language or even third language, depending on who you ask, you know, is going to be quite difficult because, you know, I do want to write the book that I hope to write someday in English. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever be able to actually write a book and like publish it, but the dream is there, and I hope that I will kind of, you know, become an author like this author, even though my book won't be like middle grade if I do end up finishing it someday. I really recommend this book, again, especially because of the subject. So yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about it now, even though I want to continue, but I'm really in a lot of pain right now, so I'm gonna end this video. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this because I feel like I was so caught up on like the subject of the book. I forgot to say this book has really good representation, and obviously it's written by a neurodivergent author, and so, you know, obviously it has good representation for neurodivergent people, especially in autistic people. So yeah, like I said, I really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, and it has good representation. I forgot to say that for some reason. So yeah, so this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will probably try to do another like 31 books in 31 days challenge sometime soon. I don't know when exactly. Maybe it might not be this year anymore, but I do want to do it someday again. I really enjoyed it. It made me read a lot, and it made me really excited to read and like finish books, and I really needed that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you had a good reading month in August. If you didn't, that's okay. I'm not having a good reading month in September. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and bye.